the third and final session of the Roots class. So I hope everyone is healthy and ready to go. So.
Yes.
Let me switch my slide here. Okay, we're all seeing this page 59?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where we left off. After last week's class, I sent out a sort of a meaning of various people's names if you had a Japanese family name. So I hope people were able to get some information from that. But as one thing that people noticed is that you can have different spellings of kanji spellings, even though it may be pronounced the same and spelled the same as far as the Romaji or the Americanized translation of the name. So that's what where we left off. That in order to get the true meaning and the spelling, you have to have the kanji spelling. And so just because your name is, for example, Saito, there's many different ways it can be written in kanji. So this, it's called transliteration. So that's taking the kanji and making it in Romaji. So that's what the English spelling is. And then the other thing to note is that people may have changed the standard way of spelling it in Romaji to another spelling in order to make it easier to pronounce, or perhaps to not really show that a name is Japanese. So example is Mori. So this is a fairly common Japanese name. However, people may know of a insurance company formed by Mr. Mori, and he spells it M-O-R-E-Y, which the normal transliteration is M-O-R-I. So just something to note that this is indeed a Japanese family, but they chose to spell it so probably Westerners can read it, or perhaps they didn't want to make it known that it is a Japanese name. So again, I'll go over what about the meaning of my family name. However, when I showed you the true kanji, the zume or tsume part, which the literal translation means fingernail or claw, but according to my relative, it means at the end of the bridge, not fingernail bridge or whatever. So just recently, I was looking up my name, as far as how common it is, and there's actually this alternate spelling for tsume. And I show it here on the bottom here. And actually it does mean end or edge. So the alternate spelling of my name actually means end of the bridge. Whereas the true spelling, and I've confirmed this is how it's spelled in kanji, that the literal translation, really doesn't mean end of the bridge. It's really this alternate spelling. So that, I'm not sure why they chose the fingernail kanji as opposed to the real end. If this is really how they decided to choose the name, or perhaps because it is pronounced the same, that they thought, okay, well, we can just use the same pronunciation. So, and then if you look at that ranking of the how common your family name is that I'd sent out to several people, there are separate rankings depending on the kanji spelling. So the ranking for the name as I have spelled it, with the toenail, is 804th, whereas there's a different ranking for this alternate spelling. So, and then, I show the websites where you can find it out, as well as the one that I sent out. It's called culturetour.net, but I believe they get the same information that this Myoji Yurai gets it from. The problem with the Myoji website is that you have to enter it in kanji, whereas in the Culture Tour you can put it in the homogenized version, so it'll give you the various versions. And I just wanted to re-show about my mother's family name. And as you can see, it is not very common. It's probably less common than this because this is probably the number of names they have. They probably have 18,000 names in their database. So this is not a very common name. So as I mentioned, the actual meaning of Myoji, the family name, comes from the word myo, or field name. So that's because, again, many names came from the rice fields. So some examples, and I had shown last week that the rice field itself, the da and the ta, are fairly common kanji as part of Japanese family names. But you also find some of these other related adjectives related to the rice field. So, for example, tomi, meaning rich. So you see all these variations using tomi at the end, which is a fairly common name. And then yoshi, meaning good. So you have, again, various names using that kanji, either at the beginning or at the end. So occupation is another common theme for family names. And usually they append the ya at the end of the name, meaning it's a shop or store. So, for example, Komeya is rice merchant, Yaoya, greengrocer, etc. And then similarly, guild names, which are sort of groups of professions. They have the bei appended at the end of the name. So Mabe is a fairly common name, Oribe, Isobe, etc. Yamabe, that's another common one that uses, again, the mountain prefix, which is, again, a fairly common kanji in a lot of Japanese family names. And then clan or bushi names, again, because of the prestige and the tradition, people would have adopted these. And so I give some examples. So the top one, probably not too common. Those are fairly old, and then these other ones seem to be more common. So any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So personal names, meaning what we call first names. So these are even more complex than family names, and I don't want to get too much into this. This is sort of outside the realm of what what I know about it. How people give names to their children. However, from what I've read, usually consists of 1 to 3 kanji characters. However, actually, you're supposed to choose. You can only choose from a specific set of kanji characters, and the reason for that is that it relates to how difficult it is to read names in general, and so I believe they passed a rule, and again, I don't know how strictly they enforce this or whether it's still enforced, but the government wanted to limit how many different ways a name can be written so that people can more easily read the names in kanji. So they limited it to 2,000 kanji characters, which is still quite a bit. You can get quite a bit of variations. But even a common name like Yuki could be written in many different ways. So that was the reason for this rule. And then how did people choose a name? Again, I'm not too familiar with how that is done today, but in the past it could have been based on some number of kanji strokes, whether someone's fortunes are based on that name, or it could be some spiritual meaning that goes well with your family name. And many times, I believe that they ask their local Buddhist priests to choose a name for their children, given that they think it's going to be good fortune. So I won't go too much into this. This is, again, more historical about how the Japanese gave personal names, several hundred years ago. And again, there could be various ways that they could provide it based on, again, whether it's good fortune or character traits, etc. So I give this to show that when you look in your family tree, you might find some of these names. So for example, apparently using just the order of birth as a way to name the children, the sons in particular. So, it's not very creative, but I guess it's a good way to track your sons. So, if you have a judo in your family tree, you know that they had at least 10 children, 10 sons, so, which is quite large. So, and, people probably are familiar with the famous baseball player Ichiro. So he, and most likely that he is the first son of his parents. And then there were also some adjectives that they threw in, like Daigoro, big fifth son, or Ryoichi, which is, again, a common personal name, good first son. So again, there's meaning attached to the names, you know, and and in the first case, it's not very, again, not very profound, that you're the fourth son or the fifth son or whatever, but again, that gives you some information that they had a large family and had many sons. And then some of these other, again, probably less common, but maybe still used, some of these suffixes refer to titles. So again, probably some people were named like that to give prestige. So this is, again, more types of names that the Bushi in particular adopted. As I mentioned last week, they could have several types of names, and they didn't necessarily indicate the person's individual identity, but more of what their stature was or what their position was. Female personal names, again, they've gone through various stages of what's popular or not popular. So here's some common female names that were taken from male names. So that's why you might see some females who appear to have a male name, but you can't tell. And that's because of this convention or way of naming females. So for example, my mother's name was Asa, and I know that that's also a common male name. And she, a lot of times, people would and the ko on the end to indicate it was a female, but she didn't have that. She wasn't named Asako. Her official name was Asa. So, and actually, I did not find that to be a very common female name among Japanese. And explain about some of the other conventions that were used. You're probably familiar with the ko or yo suffix that was used for female names. So here's some references that I've used. So you can take a look at them. Some of these are books that you would have to purchase. And then, there's always new things on Google. So that's how I found that name meaning that I sent out to people under culturetour.net. What I would do is just type in a family name and put, Japanese in there, and then, see what comes out in Google, and you never know what you can find. So that's the end of the names section, and I'll be finishing up with the family crest. So if there's any questions, I could pause here.
We did have one question. It was from last time. It was about what company made this noren.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Okay.
It was quite a few years ago. I think it was at least 20 years ago. So I'm not sure whether they're still in business, but I'll try to find where I ordered it from.
Okay.
So your family crest or kamon. So these are patterns or designs that symbolize your family and your family name. So it's important to note that the crest is tied to your family and your family name. So in other words, just like your family name represents your family, the crest also represents your family and your family name. So they all go together. So similarly, the history of the usage of a crest follows the usage of family names. So in other words, mostly the nobility or the upper class would have them, as their family symbol. They created designs and put them on their belongings. And then later on, the samurai families began using them to identify their own forces, to distinguish from the enemy. And then it became more of a family thing rather than, everyone that is under the that particular warrior class. So they created designs for their battle flags and other equipment, like their horse saddles, etc. And then later on, the common people began using it again, more related to having a family name. And then in this case, it was used specifically to tie in with your family and your family name. And then in more recently, probably all families would have a family crest. So some things to note. Your family crest is not unique to your family or your family name. So, the family crest that I showed are shared by many other families who are not related to me, and many other families who don't even have the same family name. So keep that in mind. There is no government registry or laws that govern the use or ownership of the family crest, with only one exception. And I'll get into that. So in other words, you can't look up anywhere what your family crest is. So generally, you can only find it if you have some item which that is from your family and has the design on it. And so that could be either a piece of clothing or like the gravestone that I showed you before. So the reasons for choosing a particular design, again, is very similar to how people chose their family name. And so because it's related to your family, it may be related to something about your ancestor, where they lived, or whether it's a symbol of good fortune. It could have been passed on by one of the daimyo that they were working for, transferred by marriage. So in other words, when someone gets married and it's not a yoshi, it's, in other words, the female goes to the husband's family, then the family crest, she will adopt her husband's family crest, because again, the family crest goes along with the family name. And then again, for various meanings, it could have been adopted. Again, only probably your ancestor, your relatives could tell you how it was chosen or even what it is. So as I mentioned, these are the items where it could appear on, and I show the Norden that I had made. So you're probably familiar with the different types of design. So there are particular designs that were preferred by the nobility or the samurai for, because of the linkage to that particular item. And, I'll show you some examples. Some maybe because it was the family name itself was tied in. So for example, you saw the Fujiwara clan. So of course, they adopted the Fuji as part of their family crest, and likewise to the like the Sakurai family. It incorporates the sakura, which is cherry blossom. So I'll just go into the examples of some of these. So this is, again, my family crest, and I give you some background on its history, which I got from the book or the website below. And again, this shows that, this is not unique. It was used by other families, in particular, this famous samurai, as well as other samurai families. But again, it originally came from a Minami family. Again, this is my mother's side, the Munekyo. And I explained about the significance of the sword points, the sword blades, which is why it was popular for samurai families. So the other thing to note is the variations of a particular design. They say that only one is your true design. So for example, you see below for the Tachibana, which is my crest, it could have a circle around it, or it could be black and white, and you see that certain designs have more petals than others, and then below it's more symmetrical. So so all of these are Tachibana, but only one is supposedly my true family crest. So people ask, well, how do I know which is the true one? Again, your relatives would have to tell you, and perhaps things got changed along the way. You never know. Could have started out like with the one on the far left, upper left, and then it could have morphed to something below it with the circle. As to what the particular meanings behind the variations, I don't have too much information on that. I think they were just basically, someone preferred one design over another. And then people ask, well, what if I can't find what my family crest is? Can I just pick one? And I tell them, sure. There's no law against it. You could pick your own, and who's to say that's not your family crest? You could say that's your family crest for, the American side of the family. Since you're unable to contact any relatives in Japan, so that would be my response if you wanted to have a family crest. Of course, it may not be your true family crest, but then if there's no way of finding out, then no one's going to say anything different, right? I just show some other examples which you may have seen, or maybe your own family crest, flowers, plants are very popular. Animals, so like the themes you can see that are for certain families, like the more the ones that are related to more warlike. So like the hawk feathers are common for samurai families. And as well as the arrow, the ya. So here's some well-known ones. The Chrysanthemum, which you're probably familiar that it's the family crest for the imperial family of Japan. It's the 16-petal chrysanthemum, and and this is the one exception that prohibits anyone else from using this family crest because it's reserved for the imperial family, unless of course you are part of the imperial family. So then a little history, which you may know. The reason why it was chosen is because it resembles the sun's rays, and the emblem of Japan, their flag you see is the rising sun, as well as the origin of the emperor, who is the original emperor of Japan is the sun god. So I mentioned about the Fujiwara clan. So here are two designs. You see one sort of, in one vertical direction. The other one is sort of the opposite, upside down. So again, Fujiwara means field of wisteria. And of course, they use this family crest. And then likewise, I had mentioned about the branch families because they use the Fuji character in the to and do suffix. And then it's very probable that they also adopted a Fuji crest, maybe not the exact same one as the Fujiwara, but perhaps they use some variation of the wisteria. So as another common question is about, people have heard that the females take on their mother's, their maiden name family crest. And, I've heard that from a lot of people. So what I've determined is that women usually, who are not yet married, because again, if they get married, they're supposed to take on the family name and the family crest that goes along with it of their husband, unless, again, if their husband is a Yoshi. So it's not a hard and fast rule, as far as I know, that women would adopt their mother's family's kimono rather than their father, which is their family name. So that's actually the end of the family crest discussion. And I list, again, these reference sources. These are books that I have. And you could probably get a lot of the information off the internet. They have a lot of historical information about these designs and, where they originated from. Any questions on family crest?
No questions.
Okay, so actually I'm just wrapping up here, so I'll go over reference sources. So the National Archives has a lot of these historical records related to Japanese Americans. You could look in their website to see more specific. And then I had put in a form in your reference document on how to request the camp records in particular. Now they may have changed that form, so but you could still try using it and verify it against what they have on their website, since I'm not sure whether they've changed the procedure. The USCIS also is a good source. They have a fee-for-service genealogy program, and they could, what they'll do is they'll look up any documents that they may have access to, such as the ones I've listed, and then charge you for copying them and then provide that to you. So again, you can look on their website to see how that works. And I do know people that have used this and were able to get some useful information from these documents.
We have one question.
Yes.
Are the National Archive camp records the same as you get at JANM?
No, the ones at JANM are one part of it. There's a listing on microfilm of everyone who was in camp, but that's just basically a listing. And then in the computer, there's more information that came from a form that was handed in or filled out for each internee. However, the records that the National Archives also have are sort of miscellaneous, any documents related to that internee. For example, if they were employed at the camp store, then there would be records of that. If they were hospitalized, then their medical records would be provided. So, for example, my grandmother, who was in Heart Mountain, she had cancer when she entered camp, and then she continued having treatment while she was in camp. So those records are in, some of the records that I was able to get when I requested the records for my grandmother. So Ancestry.com, which probably many people are familiar with, does have quite a few records, types of records that would be useful for Japanese Americans, and I've listed most of them here. There may be more, but these are the more common ones. And it's very easy to get these because you just type in a name and it'll look it up. So again, based on my discussion about how people were named and that there might be misspellings, you might try different spellings or different parts of a person's name in order to get the particular records in case it was misspelled or spelled differently than what you have. So for example, I spell my name with an E at the end, but some people may have put the name with an I on the end. They would pronounce it Hashizumi. So people might want to try, putting that in the search and see what comes up. So, and then, I showed you some of the records that I found in Ancestry.com for my grandfather, such as his draft cards, and then immigration records. So they have a 2-week free trial, I believe, which is available now. So if you just want to check it out, you could sign up for that free trial and then, search to your heart's content for 2 weeks. And, if you're able to get everything that you can in those 2 weeks, that's great. If not, you'll have to pay an annual fee. But again, it's, if you find a lot of stuff, it's well worth it. And then again, I mentioned about the Mormon Family History Centers, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They have a library, which probably is not open, but it is generally available to the public. The main one is in Salt Lake City, but again, they have various centers around the world, actually. And I spoke about the one in Tokyo. And then they have their own database called FamilySearch.org. I believe they have a lot of the same records as Ancestry.com, maybe not all, but this one is free. So you can try this one first and see what records you can find. And it also has, as I mentioned, the family tree records that the Mormon members have contributed. So that's, again, how I found about my grandmother, who was previously married and then divorced. Hawaii records in particular, the Hawaii State Archives, you can call or email them. And then there's a special museum in Japan, actually, which has some records and other information about Japanese who immigrated, particularly from this town called Oshima in Yamaguchi-ken. And then the Consulate General of Japan in Hawaii, I'm heard that they offer to help people whose ancestors immigrated to Hawaii to help find their records, because they feel that, okay, they're responsible for helping out the Japanese who immigrated to Hawaii. I don't know why other consul generals in the United States don't do that. I believe some of them offered to do some help at one time, but I don't believe in general this is the case. And I'm not sure whether the one in Hawaii is continuing to do this, but at one time they were advertising that they would help people, in particular for Hawaiian immigration. And then I'll mention the Kenjinkai, which are the prefectural associations in outside of Japan, and these are organizations of people who are either from these prefectures or who have ancestors that came from these prefectures, and it's just a way. It's more of a club where they get together and have programs and socialize. So the organization that sponsored my classes here is the Yamaguchi Kenjinkai, which Florence Ochi is an officer of. But if you want to find out more about your particular prefecture, then you might want to contact one of these associations. So as a final wrap up, as I mentioned at the beginning, that my motivation was to actually, uh, not just get names to put on a chart, but to, find out a little more about what my ancestors did, how they came over to this country, and then meet relatives. And that was, in order to find out that information, I had to, meet my relatives because I wouldn't have known otherwise because my parents had passed away, and the only way I could really find out, this my ancestors' stories is to, find living descendants. So when I talk about the journey, it's really the actual journey to Japan. Now I know because of the pandemic, it's prohibitive to travel to Japan, but I would say hopefully at some uh, in the near future, people will be able to travel freely and be able to explore and find out about their ancestors and relatives in Japan. So I just offer some tips on locating them. Again, these are the same tips about how you find what your ancestors' hometown is. All right, I think I mentioned all of these. And I spoke about the Goodwill guides to help you out, but there's also paid interpreters that will charge you money. I'm not sure whether these are the current rates, but this would be about $300 to $400 per day, I would say. Here's the website for the Goodwill guides. I mentioned about the Kenjinkai. So this is a picture from 20 years ago when I went with my brother and his 2 kids. So yeah, they're all now, but this was quite a memorable trip for all of us. And as I mentioned, again, the serendipity of going during Obon. Actually, I went exactly on the day of Obon, August 15th, which is actually known as Ancestor Day. So again, that made it all the more meaningful, not only for myself and my brother and his kids, but for my relatives as well that I met, because they of course knew the meaning of Obon, and they sort of attached that to when we visited during that day. So that's it for the presentation, and if there's any questions, I hope everyone can continue searching for their roots. Again, I'm open to any questions, even after this class. If anyone has any specific questions, you can just email me, or I also enjoy reading about other people's findings. If they discovered something, maybe I didn't mention, or something that they found out just from looking up in one of these websites that they had no idea before. I always enjoy reading about those. I want to caution that I'm not a detective. If someone say, well, can you help me find my, if there's any relatives in Japan, I can't do that. I don't speak Japanese. I don't read Japanese. All I can do is give you all these tips about possible places where you can look for information. But as far as looking in Japan, I don't have that knowledge or capability to do that. People often ask me, well, can you help me find my long lost uncle? Sorry, I really can't. That's not my area of expertise. So again, I can tell you about all these possible sources, but again, everyone will have to sort of dig and look around and look for any possible source of information, and then once it's available to travel to Japan, that would be probably the best way to discover anything. I just wanted to mention that I hope to have other webinars on this, the family tree topic, not just my class, but related topics, trying to find people who can, maybe talk about how to access your koseki, or I'm in communication with someone who did go to Japan, and I wanted him to tell his story of what he found out, and how he found out about his family tree. So those will be in the future, and hopefully we can offer that through the JCI. So any questions, comments?
We have one comment. Someone was mentioning that you can go to the Oshima Museum website and email them a request on your relatives versus going to Oshima.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. So did they put the website in the chat?
They didn't, but if you could do so, that would be great.
Yeah. Or if they don't have it right now, they could send it to you, Stephanie, and then you could send it out to people.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, comments?
A follow-up, she says they specialize in Issei who immigrated from southern Japan to Hawaii. Oh, but you had the references on your slides, I guess.
Okay.
Otherwise, no more questions or comments.
Okay, well, that's it for the class then, and I enjoyed doing this, and I hope everyone enjoyed seeing what they can do and learned a lot. So hopefully we'll see you again sometime, or I welcome hearing from people who have learned new things about their own family.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say too, thank you so much to you, Chester, and also Florence for helping us get this program, because this is our very first online program and it went really well. And so I'm really happy, and I hope that we can schedule more programs with you in the future. And just thank you to everybody for coming these past few weeks. We really appreciate Chester's experience and knowledge in this topic, especially for people like me who kind of feel distant from my Issei relatives. So all the information in your presentation has been really helpful. So I look forward to doing my own family tree and just going on this journey myself. And just to reiterate what Chester said, if you guys end up doing this on your own, yeah, please share with us. We would love to hear your journeys as well. And we'll be sending out the link for this video and also some upcoming programs from JCI, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, have a good weekend and stay safe, and we hope to see you all again soon. Bye, everybody.